I don't like SUVs, but when a company like Aston Martin releases one with 707 horsepower, I'm willing to give it a go. This is like being a restaurant critic stating absolutely that you hate Japanese food and then going to review a sushi restaurant. Everything about these sorts of cars I think is unnecessary. I don't like them. They're too big, they're too heavy, you're too high, they look silly, they present the wrong image to everyone else. I mean, the list is so long, but they're immensely popular and people still keep buying them. But there are one or two that naturally pique my interest, and this is one of them. The 707, that denotes the horsepower. The idea of an Aston Martin SUV with over 700 horsepower, even I'm quite curious as to what that means. I also know or knew some of the people that were involved in developing this, and one of them has now left the company, but he's a talented guy, Matt Becker. The idea of him, a sports car purist, chassis engineer, doing an SUV is fascinating. So what's it all about? Well, first of all, we've got the standard Mercedes 4-litre twin-turbo V8 as a standard. It remains a remarkable engine, and this time boosted to a crazy output. It provides this thing with eye-opening motive force. This is, it feels quicker than an RS6 to me. Maybe I'm getting it a bit wrong, but it's about that sort of performance. And this is a big vehicle, so when you put your foot down, bang. There's some Simposa nonsense going on in here that's a bit of fake noise. And the exhaust noise isn't quite as musical as I'd have hoped. All it does seem a bit valved and fake. But there's plenty of noise. I'm in Sport Plus at the moment because we're on a circuit. There's lots of engine drive modes. Two comments about the powertrain, other than the fact that it really does feel very, very potent. This must be the fastest of all the SUVs. This must be faster than a Urus. Maybe a Cayenne silly thing GT will take care of it. I don't know. The engine calibration is a little bit off for me. I can't make it settle. I've done a few hundred miles on it now, and I want really fast responsive gear changes and throttle, and sometimes it's too much for me, and then when I'm slowing down it won't settle in traffic. It just doesn't feel like the engine cal is all the way there for me. I think if I live with it, it might annoy me, but there's no doubting it's exciting. The chassis is pretty remarkable for me. How they make something this big, so responsive, so athletic. This thing will even slide, and we'll have a go at that in a minute. That's part of the reason I'm here, obviously, because the idea of an SUV that will drift around is so ridiculous. It's a real trick. The chassis is more trick than the engine and gearbox, if you ask me. It's a greater achievement. And of course, I'm at a circuit. I'm at a tiny circuit where I always come, little Landau, my favourite, in a 2-point God knows what ton SUV. I shouldn't even be contemplating doing laps, but I'm about to. Let's just go a bit quicker. There's that crazy noise. Down to the back of the circuit here. We just go straight over the curbs in an SUV. We don't even acknowledge them. It's a mighty, mighty effective bit of kit. Already getting a bit of oversteer there on the exit of a very fast corner. Let's come up to the chicaney bit. Smash the brakes. I've already braked hard quite a few times. Not even thinking about fading. They're not even thinking about fading. Sliding already. What's happened through the big right hander here then? Yeah, that's a full slide. That's full oversteer in an SUV. What about the quick one? Yeah, it's doing it there as well. What does that look like from the outside? I suppose you'll see on the video. I never really get to see that. What does that look like? I mean, from in here, I've no idea, really, that I'm in a massive SUV, beyond the fact that I'm sitting very high. Even the driving position is spot on. My feet are nice and straight out ahead of me. The seat's gripping me well. I mean, if you've no problems with being tasteless and all the other negative connotations that come with being around a car like this, they do present, look at this. They do present a pretty strong argument in terms of what human beings can do to the laws of physics. That's ridiculous. We've just done a transition and then drifted back out. Oh, I need to just take a minute to consider that. It's bonkers. It's so impressive. I don't know. But I just wish it was in a I wish Aston Martin had made a Panamera and not a Cayenne. That's what I wish. Flipping wow, what a piece of kit for what it'll do. Jeepers. Okay, yeah, I'm impressed. I don't want one, but I am damn impressed. Damn impressed. And if you're on the road, don't turn the traction control off. Because it will slide everywhere. It even turns in. How does something this big and heavy turn in? It's 115 on that short burst there.
We'd like to ask for a moment of your time. We want your watch.
So how do you make a DBX 707? Well, you take the usual AMG based 4-litre twin turbo V8, you add some roller bearing turbos, change engine calibration, you end up with 707 horsepower. That is ridiculous, 664 foot-pounds of torque. Normally when there's a step up model, you expect 50, 60 horsepower more. This has about 150 horsepower more than a normal DBX. It's an absolute monster. I suppose Aston Martin needs to make some noise at the moment, and what better way to push sales of an SUV than to come out with one that just shouts on the spec sheet, I'm the fastest thing ever. Having driven it, I can't believe that Urus is any quicker than this, or the Cayenne with the funny back and the silly name. Obviously you get an even bigger mouth because all cars have massive mouths these days. But come down the side, and this is a much, much bigger job than just an engine. Front discs are now 420mm. Get that again? 420mm carbon ceramics, 390 at the rear. It's running a 23-inch rim, which someone of my age still finds absolutely ridiculous. The tyres at the back are well over a 300 section. The whole thing's a monster. It's about 2.2 and a bit tons, and they claim 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds. What's that all about? I mean, you've seen it sliding around. It's absolutely ridiculous, and you really can transition it around. The chassis changes are interesting. So there's changes to the whole platform, basically. It's the same basic architecture as the DBX, but now there's damper changes, there's spring changes, the diffs work differently. All I can tell you is from behind the wheel, it actually feels playful in the wet. I wouldn't turn the ESP off in the wet on the road for fear of firing it into the barriers. It really is quite lively. Come around the side of it, there's two things of note here. One, Aston does some weird things that never get enough credit, really. If you look here, there's no window rubber down the bottom here. Look at that. And when you actually concentrate on the fact there's no window rubber, when you have that union of glass straight to bodywork, it looks a bit strange, but it does look cutting edge. But on that weird rear 3/4 light thing, there is a bit of rubber. So your eyes are drawn to that when it's not there. It's a lovely thing, but you wonder how much that costs. Likewise, I'm still fascinated by the rear door hinge here in terms of just needless expense. It's lovely, it's gorgeous, but it must have cost a fortune. It's got a gas strut that works in a sort of cantilever fashion. I mean, it's just wonderfully complicated. You'd think keeping 2.2 tons on the ground wasn't difficult, but apparently it is. So this massive spoiler here actually does produce some downforce, reduces lift, and it has a double diffuser, which must mean that Sebastian Vettel would be quicker driving this than a normal one. If you like your F1, you'll get that very obtuse gag. It also has a massive boot, which is quite unlike any other Aston Martin, isn't it? Fits several sets of golf clubs. And I like this, there's a button here that if that's a bit too high for you, and if you're very, very old and have too much money, it has a button here, watch this, to make it easier to load your Petrus into the boot. Do you think it's good looking? I don't. I think the back of it is pretty compromised, and this sort of duck's tail thing around here, there's too much volume. But the front of the DBX is surprisingly attractive because I think it copies the Porsche Macan, which is the best looking of all the SUVs. Okay, a mixed bag inside for me in the old DBX. I love the steering wheel, and I have to say the steering feel of the car is superb. They've really worked on that. I can't think of an SUV that steers anything like as well as this thing. But the cabin, yeah. Materials, gorgeous. It looks funky, but the ergonomics are all over the place for me. This sort of mess of a centre trough, whatever you want to call it, the old interface from Mercedes really does feel old now. So you have to use this rotational thing here. Everything takes too long and it's too much of a fuss on the screen. Also, you can see here, the light that comes down in bright sunshine onto the screen creates a really poor reflection. I know it's all nitpicking because it looks funky, and if you bought one, your friends would think you were cool as hell, but it is, yeah, lacking some sort of basic ergonomics for me. Front seats though, they've been uprated. They're really, really good. Driving position is excellent. This is a weird machine because it's kind of a driver focused SUV, which is something I'm not interested in, but it has been done really quite well. Would I want one? Absolutely not. But for those that do want a very, very fast, silly truck, this is comfortably the best one that I've ever driven.